friends, I am not naturally fit. Now, I naturally like to work out and move my body, but the opposite is true when it comes to food. My natural self would eat anything in unlimited amounts. So I've always had a layer of body fat that felt like was my settling point in the past. There are 4 things though that I did to change that, and that's what we're getting into in today's episode. So let's get into it. But first, I gotta let you know that Create Your Shape is currently open for enrollment. We're now enrolling for the May class, so we're getting started very soon. And Create Your Shape is something that will completely rewire your brain. And this is something we're going to talk about in today's episode too, outside of that. But I don't want anybody trying to do a crash diet right before summer starts, and they try to do a 2-week or 30-day crash diet, and then they feel maybe good for like a few days, but then as soon as they go back to eating anything that doesn't feel like on their crash diet and really enjoy their summer, then they gain all of that water weight back and just feel frustrated and just annoyed that they're not there showing off their muscle in a like strong and steady shape that is really true to who they are and represents the physique that they work so hard for, and shows off that they do lift weights, and that they do have optimal nutrition and now can just really enjoy that through the summer. So get in Create Your Shape now, right? This is the program for ladies who lift weights and want to build muscle, decrease body fat, really understand the strategy behind it. So not only do they feel good for the few months, but for the long term, and then have the systems and tools and strategy in the shape to make compounding results and build off of that. And for the podcast listeners, I do have a special listener bonus. So for those who are signing up for the May class, the first 3 ladies that come from the podcast will get $300 off. And all you have to do is use the code podcast300 when you sign up. And really, I've spoken to a lot of ladies listening to the podcast and just gotten really good feedback. And it makes me pumped that you guys are here every week, or for the main episodes that you love to listen to and get so much value from them. And I really appreciate your feedback. So I wanted to give back, and this is how I'm doing it. Now, this is only for the May class, and it's for the first 3 ladies. So you don't want to wait, you want to make sure you grab those before they're gone. And so you'll go to jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape and use the code podcast300, and I'll see you inside of the program. Okay, so let's get into this topic of naturally fit. So I'm sure you've heard of naturally thin, where someone just seems like they're just always thin. They could eat whatever they want. They could do whatever they want, and they're just always thin. And that may be what you think is some parts may be true and some parts not true. Or a lot of people think that it's genetics. And while genetics does play a role, I will not deny that in being thin or the muscle that you can gain, it is such a small fraction compared to what you do have control over. So really, naturally thin just comes down to the consistent actions people take that make them the way they are, that make them the body fat that they have, their like settling point body fat that they have. It's just their consistent actions of what they do day in and day out. And you might say, oh, well, that person, every time I see them, they have X food that's really bad for you and way overeat, they're just naturally thin. But as you'll learn, especially in Create Your Shape, but if you've listened to these podcasts a lot, that it really comes down to energy balance. So if they are just having that one meal, but they consistently don't overeat, then that's going to make them naturally thin. So I just have to give that example because we're a little bit more familiar with it. And that naturally fit is just kind of the same thing, but it's pairing that naturally thin or naturally lean or lower body fat percentage with naturally being built and having more muscle definition. So very similar in that no matter what season of life they're in or what season of the year it is, they're always looking fit. Like they're never drastically swinging in body fat or drastically swinging in any type of shape they have. They are just all the time fit, whether you know that they've got vacation or they've got other things going on in their life, it doesn't matter. And so again, like I said with genetics, sure, that may play a role, but does nothing compared to the consistent actions that that person is taking and just embedded into their life. So this is the main thing that I want to stress, but you can change this and you can create this for whatever, if you do want to look naturally fit. And typically when ladies come in to create your shape, I have two categories of ladies. The first one, they already have this down, right? They've got the naturally fit part down, but what they don't have is the science and the strategy and the tools and the concepts to fine tune it, right? So they've already got the identity of the fit person, the consistent actions they take, but they're missing those specifics to really get more out of everything that they're doing. The second group of people is maybe right on the cusp of that, where they already have like they're naturally healthy, but in order to get that to that naturally fit, it is an identity shift, and that really shifts people from going to healthy to fit in combination with the science and the strategy and all of the tools that we teach. So let me break down, because this was me. I would say, consider myself naturally healthy, but I was not naturally fit. I love to train, right? But I didn't know how to use training to build muscle, right? I just love to do more and more and more, and that kept me stuck. But also, I wasn't naturally thin, right? I just would eat anything all the time. And what changed were these four things. So the first is knowledge. I was just clueless, and we're never ever taught this. So most of us are clueless. We just get like bits of information from like various things that we hear and try to make sense of them, but we really never learn a strategy. We never learn about energy balance. We never learn about like macros and what that means for our bodies, and like how people build muscle. How do you decrease body fat? Like, we just don't have that background ever. And so when we are told to do something, when it comes to our nutrition, our health, anything like that, if we just hear it, like, it's like, okay, that's good to know. But if we understand how it works, that completely changes our actions we take. So, for example, when I think about having carbs before my workout, right before I heard like, oh, have a banana for your workout, it's supposed to be good for you. And I'm like, okay, have a banana, but I didn't really understand it, so I would never really do it. But then once I learned how carbs, like I literally think of the carbs going into my body, getting digested. I think of them then getting stored into my muscle. And then in my workout, I think about utilizing those. I can see the pathways. I know exactly how it works. I know the time it takes to digest. I know what foods would make, pairing that would make it slower. Like if someone pairs it with peanut butter, it's going to make that slower. And that's why I would maybe feel crappy during a workout versus just having that faster digesting carbs. And so just having this knowledge, then I understand it, and I'm so much more empowered to make decisions from that place. Same with eating enough. Same with being consistent day in and day out. Same with like the amount of macros that I need. And then same with taking that in not just macros, but then being able to estimate macros and be able to use this when I'm out and about, and being able to know if I go out to eat, what that does to my body and the scale the next day, and how to make sense of that. So many things I could go into, but the more knowledge you have, the more convicted you're gonna be. So for me, the biggest factor was definitely going from just plans that would just tell me what to do, which this is how most programs are set up and most coaching is set up, versus having the education on why it works and what exactly I should do and why, because that is such a huge difference. And that's why in Create Your Shape, I spend so much time teaching, and every question that I get, I'm first going to teach and then give you the answer. So that way you're really convicted, but then also you can build off of that knowledge, and that you don't just rely on a meal plan long term. I am very passionate about this one. This one could be a whole episode, and then that's why it's a whole core part of my program. But what you can do to change this for yourself is constantly be filling your brain with the science, in the strategy, in the information that's going to continue to reiterate the science that you need in order to influence the decisions that you're making. Listening to this podcast is a great example of that. And if you're in Create Your Shape or joining Create Your Shape, that is a perfect example of that as well. Okay, next up, number 2, that changed me from being just healthy to naturally fit is your vision, and not just seeing it, but feeling it. So your vision, it's kind of like your why. Why are you doing this? But I think a lot of times people like use these vague things, or I want to do it for, to look good in my pants, or to wear a bikini, or to, show my kids how to be healthy. And none of that is like wrong, but it just feels very surface level. Like they haven't really like spent time going deep to what that actually means and what that actually feels like. So this is something that you don't forget about, right? It's not like, oh, I forgot that I had this goal, right? That shows me that you don't have this part down yet, because when you have this vision, you feel it in your body where like, this is the person I'm becoming, this is who I want to be, this is going what I'm going after, and kind of not having it is unacceptable. And I would say that's kind of how I feel about when I think of my goals. I know what I'm capable of, and I feel the same about the ladies I work with, right? I know what they're capable of. And you probably feel this about yourself too. Like, you know what you're capable of, and you feel like not achieving it is just not doing yourself justice. And then taking that deeper of visualizing, what does that look like? Like, who am I when I have this, whether it's physique or health or this performance? Who am I when I have that and when I achieve that? And yes, you're like, physique and your output is like a walking example of that, but it's also the decisions you make, right? Oh, I'm someone who gets up and gets my, cardio done. I'm just thinking about me right now when I've got to get my cardio done tomorrow. This is like my most recent when I was in my build phase of like, yeah, it's unacceptable for me to go to the gym and not make progress. So no matter what's going on, I've got to still go there and show up, because that's the person who I want to be. And that vision is so much more like deep. It goes really deep. So how do you create this, and how do you work on this? And it really is fun, because it's just daydreaming, right? You're going to constantly be filling your brain with these visions and these feelings of like how you feel when you are that person. And for me, it's generally like badass. It is like respect. That's a big one that comes up. Capable, proud, like all of these feelings is what comes up for me. But I know, and so how do you exactly implement this? Daily journaling, like 10 minutes every single morning, journaling on this vision. I would do it for 2 weeks straight. And then you'll notice a difference there. And then you'll likely continue it on, but 2 weeks straight of just getting in there and just daydreaming, writing it down. I have a friend who they have a like weight loss program, and this is the main part of her program that she teaches, and they get insane results, insane progress, because they are not just like, okay, eat this or eat that. They're really changing and shifting the identity of that person. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 I love, and it is raising your standards. So think of it like an ex-boyfriend that you had, maybe like a few ex-boyfriends ago, like maybe who you dated in high school or something like that, where you would never date that person again or that type of person again because they were just not it. Same thing here. It's like you have changed your standards now to who you date, and like who you married to is probably not that same person. And it's the exact same thing when it comes to food. The things I used to eat, I kind of think are just like disgusting now. And I was coaching somebody on this the other week, and she was just kind of like, oh, I didn't know that could be an option, because she's like, I love these types of foods. Like, I'm such a foodie. I love this. And I'm like, yeah, that used to be me. I literally used to hover around the buffet table at any event I was at, and I would just be like picking at it all. And now, like, I will not eat bakery or dessert foods like that come from a grocery store. I just know they're not good, right? They're not good. And I'm just like, if I'm going to have some like good dessert, I want it to be good. Same with like wine, right? It's like, would you have a like, I don't know, bottom shelf wine? Like probably in college you would, but now you probably have standards where you don't drink that same wine. Just think of this across the board. Other ones for me are, I won't have less than like, I won't not have protein in my meal. That's just not an option for me. Whereas before I used to have like, oh, mac and cheese, that is my lunch with no protein. Like it just is not an option for me anymore. I know the benefit, going back to the knowledge, I know the benefit, and I kind of feel like I'm just doing myself such a disservice if I don't get that in. Another one for me is like at a wedding, I'll never have like multiple, because you know they have like multiple desserts. They'll have cakes and try this and try that. I'll never have multiple of them. This is like a standard I've just set for myself. I will just get a lot of them and have one bite of each one. And I'm going to stop, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to enjoy that. Another one that's happened over the years is I will not eat at my desk. If I'm eating, I'm in the kitchen, I'm sitting down with my plate, and I'm eating my meal, and then when I'm not eating, I'm not eating, right? And I'm doing something else, I'm not eating. That has been a great standard for me. I actually heard someone else say that they don't eat while they're on their phone. And I'm like, ooh, that might be a new one I do, because I know there's so much benefit there for bloating and the digestive enzymes actually being produced more because you're focused on the food, and which you can smell it, you can taste it more, and then you produce more of those enzymes, and therefore decreases bloating, improves digestion. So that might be the next standard that I go to. There's so many levels to this. It's not about like what I'm doing. It's just questioning, wait, why do I do this? And do I want to do it? And then is there a standard I want to set for myself and then become that person? Because there'll be moments where you're like, wait a minute, I don't really like that standard anymore, but really becoming that person. Another one, my friend Henham, she told me, she was like, I don't eat until I'm stuffed. It's like not even an option. She's like, being stuffed to me is, I know I'm gaining body fat. I know I'm doing my body a disservice. I'm making it work harder. I'm like filling it up with things that it doesn't need. And she's just like, is kind of grossed out by it now. So her standard is like, I don't eat Tums stuff. She'll like, I eat Tums Satisfied and that's it. I'm like, oh, so good. Aaron, he has a quote he always says. He's like, I only eat good food. So he will not eat fast food unless we're like absolutely desperate. But no, he like will not eat fast food. I got him gummy bears for his birthday because it's something that I've kind of like always done throughout the years here and there. And I always knew that he loved them growing up, right? And they just sat in the fridge for probably 8 months because his standard was like, he's just like, I just don't want to put that like sugar and food dye and like all of that in my body. And like going back to like your body is a temple, right? It seems cliche, but then when you think about it, like, oh my gosh, putting this in is literally going to determine how I feel. It makes you think of things differently. So it also makes you change your taste buds. So some of you guys may be like, I don't want to change it. This is such a joy in my life. But I promise you, your taste buds will change. Just like your taste in men will change. Your taste in the shows you watch are not the same as when you were a kid. Like all of that will change, especially if you consistently give yourself the new foods. And even if your reasonings change, right? If you think something is disgusting because of the way, like what you know about it, right? That's going to change how your taste buds actually perceive that food. So I promise you do not miss these things once your standards have changed. So how do you do this for yourself? I would just start questioning, right? Do I drink on the weeknights? Am I someone who does that or no? Right? That's one. What do I do when I go out to eat? What is my standard when I go out to eat? Do I order just whatever I want or no? Do I order with my macros? Or personally for me, it depends on the event, right? If it is our standard like weekly date night, I'm not going to order food that doesn't make me feel good and that doesn't align, right? I still really like it. Or drinking, right? For me, like I only drink on special occasions because again, my standards have just changed. It's not something that one I didn't even have to like work on. It just happened. So I promise you, you don't miss it. And then the last one is who you surround yourself with. I think it's pretty widely known, but I'll repeat it here. You are the 5 people, the collection of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. So if you look about the 5 people, which is typically going to be maybe your parents if you live by them, your partner, and your best friends, they will, whatever average salary they have, that's going to be your salary. Whatever average shape they have, that's going to be your shape. And can you create something different in this bubble with these people? You can, but it is a lot more challenging because of the set like beliefs and standards and thought processes and actions that they take that you're generally just going to mold right into. So, some people, they'll say like, oh, I've heard this actually a couple times recently, like, oh, I would never not eat cake at someone's birthday party. And that's the standard that they have, right? And that standard is going to give them a certain output. And so just questioning, do I want that standard, right? And questioning the standards that the people have around you. And if you want to take those on and how you want to be differently, and know that if you are going to be different, like at first that may cause some uncomfortableness and some friction, but then once you're solid in your own goals in your own body, and it's so much easier, right? The other thing is just getting fitness friends. I cannot stress this enough, because when you surround yourself with other people who think differently, who take different actions, it's going to open you up to things you didn't even know were like just standards that you were doing. So, CrossFit completely changed my life with this, because it's a very community based. So you meet so many friends. Like that's how I met Aaron, right? And it was completely normal for him to like track macros. And so when I started tracking macros, that wasn't like weird or strange, because he was already familiar with that, right? He was already into nutrition, right? And just like all of our friends were in that group, right? Now I always had like different friend groups, because I might be like you, might be social, where I'm like, oh, I have this group of friends and I have this group of friends and this group of friends. But it's just something to consider. Something else that I've seen is people who are the leaders of their friend group. So maybe they weren't always, but I have someone in Create Your Shape now, and she shared with me like her friends they went on a group trip together, and they saw how great she looked and how like the decisions she was making with her food and beyond that. And they were like, oh, let's do a challenge. Like we should really do a challenge together, because I don't think the other friends were as fit or working out. And they were asking her to like, okay, what should we do? Because they know she knows, and they're influenced by her. And so they put together this cool challenge, which I think is such a good example of like, even if that friend group doesn't align with where you're going, you can for sure take them with you, and they'll really appreciate that. And yes, there probably still will be like comments and things you have to work through, but that's part of it, and it's not a problem. And then lastly, I would say online communities, because sometimes just your immediate access to people is not going to be where you want to go. I have utilized online communities for so many things. I actually just joined a histamine like community today, to just like, because they're going to be on top of it when it comes to like histamine, for something I'm trying to figure out. But I did it for businesses, like my business goals and like building a business. I've done it for just like online communities and fitness communities. I've done it just from making friends online and like meeting up with them. I cannot stress this enough, because you pick up so much just from having chats with people. And if they have something that you want or are working towards something you want, it's a huge benefit to be in the same room as them, whether it's physically or online. This is another benefit I see with Create Your Shape, where the ladies like make friends with each other, but then they tell me they enjoy hearing others get coached and what others have to share and where they're winning and where they're struggling with, because it just opens the door for them to start shifting their mind and shifting how they think about it. So This also is the same thing if you're like, oh, I've kind of got all these down. This is the same thing going from fit to fitter. So right now, as I take my shape from fit to even fitter, right, I've got to do this at the next level. So there's always ways to fine tune here. And I see it across the board for everyone. So I focus on strategy and science and structure and education in Create Your Shape. So you can have not only the tools, but also the knowledge to be able to change your body composition for now, but for the long term. But usually what's missing and why we have these weekly calls and the deep dive in coaching is the identity shifting that takes place to be naturally fit. And whether that is from healthy to fit or fit to fitter, depending on where you're at, there's gonna be part of this here. And whether it's with coworkers or friends or just your personal decision making, right? That is a huge part of becoming a fit person and looking like you lift weights and then building off of that shape. So right now, Create Your Shape is open for enrollment, and I invite you to join us because it's 100% possible for you too. And just a reminder that the first 3 who join from the podcast will get a discount, $300 off with the code podcast300. So I look forward to working with you, and I'll see you next week on the Create Your Shape podcast.